Okay. Good evening and welcome. Tonight's meeting is being conducted virtually by Zoom webinar and is being live streamed on the City of Milton's Facebook page. Please note the only active videos and microphones will be that of our panelists, which includes the mayor, council members, and city staff. All attendee videos will be disabled and will remain disabled for the duration of the meeting. All microphones will be muted except for the mayor's call for public comment. At that time only, and when notified, the moderator will unmute your microphones to allow you to speak. Attendees joining the meeting who wish to make a public comment may do so by using the raise hand feature. For Zoom app users by computer, tablet, and smartphone, the raise hand feature is located at the bottom of your screen. Click raise hand. Callers using telephones can access the raise hand feature by using the phone keypad. To raise your hand, you press *9, and to unmute, you press *6. Please do not use the raise hand feature until the mayor calls it for and announces the appropriate time for public comment. The Q&A function found at the bottom of your screen can be used for procedural questions during the Zoom app only, regarding the Zoom app only. Chat with panelists and other questions are prohibited for tonight's meeting. The meeting will now begin. Mayor Joe Lockwood.
Okay, thank you, Stacy. I'd like to call the virtual special call meeting of the Milton City Council for Thursday, April 23rd, 2020 to order. The city strongly recommends that you review tonight's agenda carefully, and if you wish to comment on any item on the agenda, then you may do so by public comment. There will be two opportunities for public comment on tonight's agenda. One will be at the beginning during general public comment, and number two would be during new business. The moderator will provide public comment instructions at that time. While the Milton rules allow a speaker to request to make a comment up until the clerk calls the agenda item, once the agenda item is called, then there will be no more comment requests can be accepted. So at this point, could our city clerk please call the roll call?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'll be happy to call roll for the April 23rd, 2020 special called meeting. As I call roll this evening, please confirm your attendance. Mayor Joe Lockwood.
Here.
Councilmember Peyton Jamison.
Here.
Councilmember Paul Moore.
Here.
Councilmember Laura Bentley.
Here.
Councilmember Carol Cookerly.
Here.
Councilmember Joe Longoria.
Here.
And Councilmember Rick Morick.
Here.
And now we will have the Pledge of Allegiance.
Okay. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, I want to welcome everybody here, although virtually, to our meeting tonight. Appreciate everybody making accommodations to get here, as well as any of the public that has joined us. So I'll ask Sudi, as our city clerk, to please sound the next item.
Our next item is approval of the meeting agenda. Agenda item number 20111.
Okay, do I have a motion and a second for approval of the agenda?
Mayor, I make a motion that we approve the meeting agenda as read, item number 20-111.
Second.
All right, I have a motion from Councilmember Cookerly with a second for approval from Councilmember Longoria. All in favor, please say aye and raise your right hand. I'm going to ask each individual council member first. So if Councilmember Longoria, if you could please vote.
Or yes. Aye.
All right, Councilmember Moore, please vote.
I vote aye.
Okay, Councilmember Morrig, please vote.
Aye.
Councilmember Cookerly, please vote.
Aye.
Councilmember Jamison, please vote.
Aye.
And Councilmember Bentley, please cast your vote.
Aye.
And I also vote in favor. So that that passes unanimously. All right. The next item is public comment. Stacy, do we have any public comment?
We do not currently have public comment, sir.
Okay. I'm going to move on to new business then. Please note, this is a second opportunity for public comment. If you wish to comment on any new business item, please use the raise hand feature now. Will the city clerk please sound the new business item, first new business item?
This is council consideration of possible amendments to the April 15th, 2020 emergency ordinance, modifying those limitations on the conduct of the city council as they pertain to policy making functions and ordinances. This is agenda item number 20112. Mr. Ken Gerard.
Mr. Mayor and members of the council, thank you very much this evening. Just to make sure, can everybody hear me? Just maybe a head nod would be, let me know. Thank you. All right, fantastic. The agenda item this evening is actually a possible amendment to the emergency ordinance. As the council is aware, since March 20th of 2020, we have had in Milton a declared emergency ordinance that is specifically provided for in the city's charter. The ordinance did a variety of things, and one of them I want to mention at the outset is that it declared that we were able to have these live streaming teleconference virtual meetings pursuant to the Open Meetings Act 5014(1)(g). And so we have been doing that for the duration of the emergency ordinance as it has been in effect. So the first iteration of the emergency ordinance did a variety of things over and above just the teleconference meeting accommodation, but it also sort of defined how the city of Milton was going to operate for the duration of the emergency. This was a very practical, pragmatic thing, candidly trying to balance the operations of the government with the understanding that we're going to be doing some things remotely, and we want to give the citizens of Milton confidence that we're not going to be doing anything that is too much in the nature of large policy pronouncements, while otherwise folks are sheltering in place and may not have the access they normally would have to have. So that's what you did, and candidly, many governments did similar things, again, attempting to balance the need for transparency with the need for folks to have some distancing as well. So that ordinance, for instance, stated that during the term of this emergency, we would not hold public hearings, et cetera, and we actually wouldn't even adopt or even work on ordinances. All well and good. However, as I think everyone will acknowledge, this state of emergency has now drug on for a while, and we understand why, and there's obviously reasons why folks need to be careful, and that we need to all keep our distance for some additional period of time. The original date, as the charter requires, was for this ordinance to have a 30-day lifespan, so that would have put it to April 19th. On April 15th, the city council went ahead and adopted an extension of the emergency ordinance. And when you did that on the 15th, you kept it just the same, except you extended it for another 30 days. Again, as the charter allows, 30-day increments. So we are actually already now a few days into that amendment. However, during the discussion of that amendment, and it sort of sprang up organically, if you will, became the notion of, do we need to sort of open the lid just a little bit to allow some things that are beginning to become backlogged for us to sort of be able to take some actions? Things like, can we go ahead and at least allow us to discuss ordinances, maybe ordinances of the non-land use variety? I know that land use is of preeminent importance in Milton, and certainly citizens want to be able to engage actively and openly when it comes to land use. But how about some other ordinances? They might not actually be COVID-19 ordinances. That may be things like, oh, I don't know, vape shop ordinances, or the other sorts of just regulatory powers that the Milton needs to be able to take advantage of and be able to put into effect. So we had the discussion on April 15th. We went ahead and adopted that emergency ordinance. And candidly, I think there was a scrivener's error in that ordinance. It actually needed to expire on May 19th. So now we're to tonight. The direction that I received was to put together another version of the ordinance. It would be in the nature of an amendment. and it would basically run within the same durational time period as the emergency ordinance you just adopted. So it would still run to what I believe was supposed to be the effective termination date of May 19th, and that is clarified in this emergency ordinance that I have provided to you, May 19th. By way of context, just to give you a little bit of context on that, the governor's declaration of statewide emergency is currently slated to end on May 13th, is my understanding, May 13th. And I think the shelter in place actually ends on April 30th. So what this new version would do is, as I've already mentioned, it would expire on May 19th, but it would also lift the lid a little bit with respect to the actions and the activities and the functioning of the city of Milton. For instance, in section 6.1, if you're following along in your agenda book, we have some new language. So for instance, rather than saying all matters involving a public hearing would not be able to go forward, it would say now that all land use matters requiring a public hearing, including but not limited to zonings, special use permits, and variances, would continue to be stayed. So again, taking the focus on land use, which, as I mentioned previously, is something I know is very important to the citizens of Milton and very important to the council, and you want full and robust engagement on that. I get it, and your staff gets it. So that's why we sort of lifted the lid, but only on those sort of police power enactments that were not land use driven. And then we did the same thing with respect to sort of the general statements. With respect to policy-making functions, we still would have the impediments that we can't work on strategic plans. Those things are supposed to guide us, strategically for the next several years. And we're not going to engage in land use planning functions or visioning or development of these, large-scale visioning enactments by the city. But we could work on an ordinance or two and conduct some activity that we need to discuss it to sort of prevent a significant backlog in the operations of the city when we are finally able to go back to what I would call business as normal, to the extent we're ever able to do that, which I hope we will. This ordinance that I put in front of you would continue to prohibit us from adopting zonings and plats and variances and other land use decision making. That would continue to be the case. But as has been the case for our emergency ordinance since its inception, we could do contracting, budgeting. I've added in ordinances, and we would continue to be able to operate, obviously, in fiscal operations to keep the city running as normal. So bottom line, council members, the biggest thing this amendment does is it does allow us to work on non-land use-based, zoning-based ordinances. We could go ahead and continue to move forward with those. And again, it makes clear that the termination date of the emergency ordinance is a solid May 19th termination date. Mr. Mayor, that's my presentation. Again, there's not a great deal going on in the emergency ordinance. This is what I hope to be a very utilitarian, just practical loosening of the reins a bit, but it is certainly not any effort to begin to do all the robust sort of decision-making that Milton traditionally engages in. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Correct. But obviously when we first went into this, we didn't know how long the situation would last, and there are several business items that are starting to pile up, so to speak, for lack of a better term. So this will give us some flexibility to continue on business with the city. So is there any, Council, let me ask Stacy, is there any public comment on this?
No, sir.
Okay, I'll close the hearing. Is there any questions from council or I don't know, Steve, if you've got anything you want to add to that?
No, Mayor, I believe Ken captured everything perfectly.
Okay. How about council? Is there any questions on that?
I think it's understandable, reasonable.
Okay. All right. If there's no other questions or comments from council, I'll open up for a motion.
Mayor, I move that we approve agenda item number 20-112.
Second.
Okay. I've got a motion for approval from Councilmember Longoria and a second from Councilmember Morik. I'm going to ask individually for both votes again. So I'll just go. Councilmember Cookerly, would you please state your vote?
Aye.
Okay, and that's for approval. Councilmember Longoria, please state your vote.
Yay.
Councilmember Morrig, if you'd please state your vote.
Aye.
Councilmember Jameson, if you'd please state your vote.
Aye.
Councilmember Bentley, if you'd please state your vote.
Aye.
Okay, and Councilmember Moore, if you'd please state your vote.
Aye.
Okay, and I'm also going to vote in favor. So at this point, that was unanimous, Sudi. So that was our only business item. Before we adjourn, I just want to open up for any comments. I know with the governor's latest orders and the possibility of our state opening up, there's a lot of questions. I know staff has done a pretty good job. Greg's done a great job putting some things out there online. Again, there's a lot of things that we have to consider and whatnot. So I know there's been questions about opening up parks and recreation, not only programs, but also our parks, and a lot of questions with businesses and all that. So again, we've, I don't know, Steve, if we've talked briefly about it, but at this point, we've still got to assess a lot of things before, we take any actions. Is there anything, any comments from council or Steve, do you have anything to add to that?
The governor's shelter-in-place order is still in effect until the 30th. We want to take at least the next week that we have available to us to kind of assess how things progress right now. We're seeing numbers fluctuate that I don't think that necessarily we were expecting to see fluctuate regarding infection numbers and some things along those lines. I think this is a great opportunity for us to assess the current environment and then make decisions more towards the end of the governor's order.
Okay. Any council comments on that, or concerns or questions? Paul?
Steve, in reference to your the governor's action that he's taking, is it my understanding, or it is my understanding, that he is lifting some of the requirements and allowing some businesses to go back to some semblance of normalcy effective tomorrow, with a rather peculiar list of businesses, but nonetheless a list. Are we going to allow those to in Milton cooperate at the same level, or are we going to hold a higher standard than the governor is offering at this point?
So that's a great question, Councilman Moore. To piggyback on what the mayor said earlier, I don't think this is going to go like a light switch regardless. There's going to be a significant ramping up period. But the governor has also included in his order that as a municipality, we cannot, we can't create more stringent regulations or looser regulations related to this. So Ken, please feel free if I'm not stating this correctly, but I believe we are bound by the governor's order on how things will open.
That's right. This is Ken Gerard. Yes, the city manager is right. The governor has put in place an order that effective tomorrow, those businesses that had been effectively banned will be able to come online. The order is very clear. They must engage in what's called minimum basic operations. Under the order, the sorts of businesses are, for instance, like massage institutions, hair salons, beauty shops, et cetera, those sorts of things. Not only are those institutions required to engage in minimum basic operations, and the order itself contains a list of 20 different protocols they are to consider as part of their opening. I will also tell you that the State Board of Cosmetology has also issued some guidance that is online that practitioners could take a look at, that provides how they can sort of come back to life, if you will, in this difficult environment where, and candidly, the reason that these were, if I may, shut down businesses is because they're the kind of businesses that simply require close physical interaction as part of the way they operate. And so there has been some guidance put online to the various boards that govern some of these entities. But the city manager is correct. They will come online or have the right to. That's one of the things, too, that's important to understand. What the governor has indicated is that they are allowed to open subject to these minimum basic operations. It's not a mandate that they do, but it is an authorization that they can, which I think is meaningfully different. And I also believe that the governor indicated in the same press conference that he may, in fact, have some guidance that would allow in dining in restaurants to go live on Monday, the 27th, is my understanding. But I don't want to get ahead of that. And obviously, the governor has not issued that order yet, but I understood that guidance may be coming from the governor shortly as well. City manager is also correct that Milton is not in a position to be able to speak and impose stricter or more lenient rules. The governor's order is very clear that he wants to have the last word on that, and so we'll have to yield to that.
And I may just want to add my perspective and what I'm seeing, and again, my position on this is to Ken's point. These businesses may be allowed to open, but it doesn't mean it's mandatory that they do open. And from what I see, and my anticipation is, a lot of these businesses are going to take much longer to open. They're going to, through their own decisions, as well as our citizens, our public, as far as to where they want to use these businesses, whether it's the businesses you recommended or read out the list, or restaurants. I don't think it's turning a light switch on Monday and tomorrow. I think it's going to be a slow process. So, our citizens have by all around used good judgment, and I foresee that being the same thing with some of these openings. So I don't think it's going to be a floodgate opening tomorrow and then again Monday for a lot of businesses opening. So anybody else have anything, Paul?
Yeah, Joe, I just want to complete that thought. I agree with your assessment too, and that is that there's a lot of conflicting opinion from the community, both near and far, about whether those are the right businesses to be opening first or whether they should be. We want to, of course, give our small businesses in Milton the chance to take the first step back if they believe it's appropriate. But I also would share the responsibility back on the community, and just, if you're uncomfortable with that business opening, it's not necessarily appropriate to shame that business for trying to get back on their feet. But it's an individual responsibility as a citizen of Milton to use your good judgment on whether or not, if you're not comfortable, then don't go. And if you are comfortable, support the business. And it's an individual decision where we're basically, to some extent, reinstating some of the civil liberties that people were concerned about some restriction on. So I just charge our community with being responsible to themselves, whether that business has chosen to open or not.
Okay. Yeah. No, I totally agree. Anybody else? One other thing too, just want to, reiterate, and Steve, I'll let you comment too. We've discussed prior, and there is a lot of talk, with several municipalities on budgeting and potential shortfalls and crises that governments may have. And just so you know, our staff is monitoring that. We do feel that we are in a different position, Milton is, than many of others because of the obvious reasons. But I did want to bring that up, that it's certainly something that we are tracking, and we'll make sure that we keep everybody updated. And again, we at some point may need to make some budget changes. Steve, I don't know if you want to.
It's been the topic of conversation every day, and in fact, next week, almost my entire week is filled with those budget meetings with each of the departments, just to ensure we're tracking in the right direction. And then I have another meeting at the end of the month at the state level to talk about what are potential anticipated impacts. Just again, it's all guesses at this point, but it's at least we'll all at least be getting on the same page. But as of right now, from what I stated on the 15th, I still believe that we're in good shape here.
And again, I'll just add that, even though we have existing budgets, doesn't mean that we are going to fund or spend spend our budget, we're certainly looking at everything very wisely just to make sure in case we do have to make some adjustments later.
We're focused mostly on infrastructure and support where we need to make sure that operations continue going forward. The rest are on hold.
Okay. Anything else from council?
Mayor,
Laura? Sure.
you. I just wanted to mention that apparently North Fulton is getting a testing site over at Sargent and Jones Bridge.
Creek. Yeah.
Yeah, so I know that the folks that live over in this area will be happy to know that they don't have to go to Charlie Brown or Georgia Tech should they need to get that test done. So thank you to our Fulton County representatives for that.
Yep. No, sounds good. Yeah, we got updated on that the other day. That's good news. Anybody else? I appreciate everyone showing up for tonight's meeting tonight. So with that, I'll conclude the meeting. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right, I have a motion to adjourn from Councilmember Morrig with a second from Councilmember Longoria. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, aye. So Sudi and Tammy, that was unanimous. Everyone voted in favor of an adjournment. Imagine that. So anyways, I want to again thank everybody, and we'll talk to you later.